Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of White Sox Daily Live. My name is Ian Eskridge. I am here with my co-host, the Danny Miller. How you doing, Danny?
Doing well. Just trying to get through another week of just a sad state of White Sox news and happenings, and ah, you know, we continue to grind this thing out week after week, and I was saying before the show, I need to go back and look at some of these old streams like back in April, early on in the season, because I feel like with a fairly high certain fairly high degree of certainty that there is a lot more gray in this beard after this 2023 season. But uh, I will say this: am watching less and less White Sox baseball as we've discussed in the past, and it is doing wonders for my mental state. But yesterday I spent some time with the boys in the garage. Man, we did a live auction fantasy football draft, and that helped me keep my mind off of things. So, you know, just plugging along to get through this season, and hopefully the offseason has some better answers for us White Sox fans. But anywho, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. As I say, um, if I didn't have the minor leagues to follow, I'd want to beat my head against the wall. It's this the whole, this season's just been one kick in
Brutal.
the nuts after another, and um, it's coming to a close. You look at the standings. I mean, we're 21 and a half, probably going to be 22 and a half back after tonight. Obviously the season's over. So I'm going to bring on our guest for the evening. You guys know Mr. Beefloaf, Mr. Delicious 13 from Twitter. Let's go ahead and bring him up here. How you doing, Beef? Good to see you.
Hey,
I'm great, guys. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
absolutely.
Been looking forward to it for since I asked you about it. It's kind of one of those things we've always thought about having you on, but for whatever reason, I just spaced it and never asked, and you're gracious enough to accept the invitation. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here, guys. Like, Ian, we had a conversation on my side podcast, the Ajou, and we had a great time discussing a lot of prospect talk there. I can't wait to cut it up with you guys and see what you guys want to discuss about the current White. There's a lot going on with the White Sox. Not a lot of it positive, but there's stuff happening.
So much of it is negative. Yeah. Obviously, from the 108, you guys do so much. You guys are pretty much everywhere, and
You could have just stopped with so much because the one thing I gotta say is I admire your tenacity.
Thank you.
The whole of your group is constantly plugging away, grinding it out week after week with all the different shows and guests and things you have on, and of course, attending these atrocious ball games. So, my hat's off to you and the rest of the guys over there at the From the 108, sir. I really.
Danny, attending the games has just become a sickness. Like you said, haven't been watching very much, and your mental attitude is much better and everything. We're like heroin addicts. That's why we go all the time. I was still watching. I finished my earlier podcast, watched the game, and then right before I came down here with you guys, I kind of I think I missed the last out, maybe, but whatever. So but I appreciate that. Yeah, we do grind hard, and we've been grinding hard for our blog is 7 years old. Podcast and Sunday Soak are 5+ years old. So yeah, we just enjoy doing it. We like having fun, and we like the White Sox most of the time.
yeah, they make it
Most
so
of the time.
difficult, to like them, and we'll get into it in a little while, but at least it seems like some of the unlikable stuff has gone away in the last week. But when that source of frustration goes away, 3 more pop up. So, yeah. So I just want to bring up the A's series. Since we last streamed, the White Sox played a 4-game set against the A's, and just absolutely embarrassed in the first 2 games, and we'll get into Friday night in a little while. But it's just one thing after another. If it's not one side of the equation, it's the other side of the equation. I assume that you were at both of those first A's games.
I was, yeah. I was at Thursday night, and Thursday night was a night that was so hot out there. You get heat stroke in the evening, which is kind of a rare thing. I took the class picture, and it's like the sweatiest picture you've ever seen of fans. And there weren't a lot of people there. It was kind of funny. There was supposed to be like a reverse boycott, like the A's fans were trying to get the side, and it's almost like they did the reverse boycott, guys, because no one showed up. There was nobody there. There was like 7 people in the crowd total. But yeah, I mean, embarrassing and uncomfortable game to just like sit through, like and you get nothing going on. They get home runs launched. The ball was flying well, mostly for the A's, not for us. But yeah, I was there Thursday night, and then Friday night, obviously, I didn't get shot, so that's good. But Dylan Cease, I've been frustrated in the past with Dylan Cease. He made me eat crow last year when he had a Cy Young runner-up year. But I've never been a huge fan of Dylan Cease, and this year he's really cratering. Like, I looked this morning, and obviously Michael Kopech had another bad start, but Michael Kopech and Dylan Cease ERA pluses are 90 for Kopech and 93 for Cease. So Cease is having as bad a year as Kopech. He's just not getting all the attention of how bad his year has been.
Yeah. Luckily, I mean, not luckily, I guess. Because it's kind of sad, but Tukey and Clevenger managed to salvage, the last 2 games of that series, and that's kind of a good lead in into what I wanted to talk about. First off, here, the rotation for 2024. Now, obviously, with all of the big foundation pieces being traded away, and next year, you're slated. The only guys who are definitely on the roster for next year is Cease, Kopech, and Tukey Toussaint. And obviously we just picked him up off of waivers, and he's his ARB1 next year. So I mean, you have him for a couple more years. But the other guys that are there, you've got Clevenger, who's got that weird opt-out, clause. It's a mutual option, so either one can say, no, I don't want to do that, and everybody just goes their separate ways. And then you have Schultens, who was only signed to a 1-year deal, even though he's, not, I mean, if they would have signed him to a multi-year deal, I guess they could have grabbed him. But, he's possibly gone as well. So what are you thinking for next year for the starting rotation?
Well, it's funny. Like, this is like the perfect free agent market, too, to take a bunch of stabs at random guys who either have fallen down, haven't been good, or maybe you see a little potential there. The guy I really wanted last year was Michael Lorenzen, because I thought he fit perfectly. Like, and Clev has been good. Okay, I'm not really complaining about his performance, but I kind of liked Michael Lorenzen because I'm like, cats like these athletic guys. Like they tried it with Vince Velasquez, and because they didn't get a great start there, like they ended up letting him go. And then he was pretty good in Pittsburgh to start the year, but then an injury succumbed to him. But like, this is a market where you can just go take some gambles on some guys, and I think that's kind of what the White Sox are going to do. Like, to shoot, kind of for the bottom of the barrel. There's a lot of free agent pitchers out there because you don't have the internal depth right now. I mean, I don't know when Davis Martin's slated to be back. I assume it's like midseason. Even then, I don't know that you can count on him after an injury. Yeah, right, exactly. You got to give him some time a little bit. So, I mean, I think right now they're in a weird spot where they have. It's almost like it's 2017 again. They have opportunities to give people some shots, and they didn't do enough of that back then. I hope that they take full advantage of this right now and go out there and look for the guys that have been injury cases. You know, I know he sat out the whole year. Look at the Chris Archer types, right? The guys that probably don't have anything left, but let's gamble and see if we can resurrect some careers here. You know, and it would be helpful. Like, I like the Tukey pickup, Ian, because he's got control. Like, if there's more of those guys laying around, go grab those guys up and see what you got.
Yeah, and like the thing, you know, I've talked to Danny about this before. You know, I always liked the upside of Tukey. You know, obviously when he was drafted by the Diamondbacks, but you know, when he was with the Braves, I also liked the upside a lot, and he just never seemed to be able to put it all together. And he would have, you know, he'd have a couple good innings to start, but you know, then there'd be a blow up inning, and you know, we've seen that a couple of times here, and I've heard on, you know, an interview with him that he's like, you know, we're just looking to put it all together and being able to maintain some consistency in my starts. And, you know, with the Sox, he's done that pretty well. You got anything on this, Danny? You got anybody that you're hoping on or thinking about?
No, to be honest with you, you know, I'm kind of on the same bus as Beef was talking about, where, you know, we're in that situation now where obviously this rebuild was a complete and utter disaster of a failure. And we've got time to make things happen. You know, there's been a lot of talk about a change in clubhouse, you know, what's the word they've been using? Culture?
Yes.
Culture. Yeah.
Been hearing a lot of that word culture. You know, obviously all the reports are saying that Pedro is going to be coming back. You and I have discussed this a little bit the last couple of weeks, where, you know, he could save his job by going into an internal interview that we heard was, you know, conducted the last couple of weeks between, you know, all the front office people and coaches. And he could say, well, you know, things failed this season because nobody was buying into the culture that I was trying to establish with this team. So why not go out and scoop up some of those guys that Beefloaf was talking about, where, you know, maybe you're looking for that second chance. You're looking for that resurgence. You might come into the game with the heart that this team has been lacking the last few seasons, and you know, you might catch lightning in a bottle. So I'm right there with you on that. It's you gotta hope that there's somebody out there that can inject some energy into this team, because obviously there is none in the 2023 season. It has been an absolute disappointment when it comes to, you know, just any sort of inkling of consistency. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it's like dead men walking. You know, all, you know, from the beginning of the season. I mean, you know, if you start off 7-21, I mean, it's like, you know, I don't know exactly how the ball, like, you know, like that, you know, from the cartoons where the snowball starts rolling and it's really small. It's just a snowball at first, but then it ends up becoming like a complete avalanche. And that's, I mean, it's basically how it seemed to start. You know, it's like as soon as they came home, there was that one game by Kopech where he gave up like 18 home runs. And and then after that, it was
the
just
home opener.
Yeah.
The home opener. It was like, I said this last week. Like, who would have thought that that was going to be the omen of how the rest of the season was going to go? Oh, we have an appearance from one of my 3 canine friends here.
Yeah.
So, oh, apparently he's not happy with me either. I'm gonna have
Well,
to.
the Sox played good in Houston before they came home, so it was like, oh, this looks like this is the team we're you know, and then we're gonna come home and we'll win some games here. And then no, that started off bad. I mean, I was at the game against Tampa where they broke the long losing streak, where it was pouring rain and it was like 38 degrees, and we were, you know, getting hypothermia out there. And Andrew Vaughn hit the walk off like home run. It's like. And it was, you know, it's probably my favorite win in the last 10 years, only because we were dying. We were out there like, we can't win a game. This team just can't win a game. And it's like, you knew then, this is a bad team. We really need some luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, like, what do you think, you know, and this is something, you know, obviously Davis Martin, his arm fell off, needed to have it operated on. Sean Burke, we have no idea where he went. He just disappeared. And, you know, I'm sure somebody somewhere has an explanation, but hasn't really, like, nobody really knows where the heck this guy is or what happened to him. there is a couple of positive developments here in the last couple of days. Christian Mena got bumped up to Charlotte, and so did Nick Nastrini from the Dodgers trade. I would assume that you're also going to get looks at those guys, and I would assume that they probably also don't want them sitting in Charlotte too long with that crazy park down there. So, I mean, would that interest you for next season?
Yeah, I mean, Christian Mena interests me for this season. Like, when there was an injury, I subscribe to there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. If someone's getting people out in Double A, there's no reason they can't be getting people out on 35th Street over here. So, like, I was ready to bring him up. Now, he had a rough patch in the middle of the season. He righted that, and now he's pitching well again. Still a young guy. He's only 20 years old, and he's actually done the stuff at the levels, right? Everyone has promise. He actually has produced at all these levels and has built up an innings base where you could throw him in the rotation and not feel like, oh, okay, we have to baby the arm or whatever. He has actually gone out there and done the thing. Now, he doesn't have overwhelming velocity, but he seemed to succeed at every level. How about we just take the guys that are good and not worry about whatever the tools are? If the guy gets guys out, I'll take him. Bring them, and I'll see him in Chicago. And you know what, Ian, Danny, there's going to be spots for these guys because even if they go out and grab some guys, no one stays healthy all year. And I would love it if give the guy a shot to win a rotation spot. And so what if you signed a guy for $5-10 million in the offseason who's throw that guy out if Mena beats him out. Like I would be very interested in it. Nastrini, I don't know much about other than I know the stuff is good and I know he came over in the Dodgers trade. But yeah, I'd be willing to try him out too. Mena's been this longer putt. He's been in there and he's kind of like he was behind Norge Vera. And then it was like he shot past Norge. Now I don't even hear about Norge Vera anymore. I don't even know what level Norge Vera is in, but I know Christian Mena's on the precipice of the majors. He's in Winston-Salem. Okay. Right.
Yeah, he's in Winston-Salem. He just came back from the ACL the other day to throw his first. It's like in 2 months, his first appearance in 2 months, and he threw I think 1 2/3 innings, and I can't remember. I think he maybe gave up 4 runs or something. But it was the velocity looked okay. They were. The visiting club, so I didn't hear anything about what the velo looked like. But the pitch count for him is going to be a major issue if they try and do anything with him right now. Talking to Kurt Bloom, the play-by-play guy for the Barons, one of the things that he said was that the super tack ball in Birmingham, pretty much literally everybody hated it.
Great.
The pitchers didn't know where the ball was going, and the hitters also did not know where the ball was going. So if it was anywhere close to the strike zone, or it looked like it was going to be anywhere close to the strike zone, they had to swing. So it kind of screwed up everybody's numbers in the first half of the season. And Christian Mena being one of those guys. And when you look at his numbers in the first half of the season, you kind of have to take that into account, that he's throwing with a baseball that he doesn't know exactly where it's going to go. Plus, he's also trying to work on different pitches, not just his curveball, because his curveball is dominant. But the thing is that, you're trying to get all this other stuff developed, and you really can't. And, fortunately for Nastrini, he didn't get traded here until the trade deadline, so he didn't end up having to pitch with that ball at all, being in the I forget which league he was in, but he didn't have to throw with that at all. And he looks like a pretty well-developed pitcher. I think he'll fit. I mean, he'll certainly be an upgrade for Charlotte's rotation, which has been, pretty dreadful, even, after the trade deadline and the adding of Urania and Patino. It's just you're adding all these guys. It's see the jokes with the. If the White Sox had the 2018 versions of these guys, it'd be the all-world team at that point,
Yeah.
Well, as our studious guest has mentioned, these guys could come up if they're getting people out at, say, the Double A and even Triple A level. Let's just say they did bring those guys up. If they were to fail, you bring up the fact that Michael Kopech and Dylan Cease aren't exactly, lighting the world on fire up there. I'm pretty sure these guys could probably come up and give you at least the same. Michael Kopech, I think I saw a stat, after the game here today, where his last 12 starts, he's got like a almost 7 ERA.
Yeah, he's struggling
I'm
big time.
I'm pretty sure we have a couple of guys that could come up from the minors and do exactly the same thing. So why not give them the opportunity to come up and walk 8 guys a game and give up
That'd be
14
their turn, right,
dingers?
Danny?
I mean, at least get that taste. Obviously, some people are going to say that's bad for development, but get them a taste at the MLB speed against MLB hitters and let them work it out. Because what else are we doing with these kids right now? And obviously, this season is a throwaway at this point. So why are we waiting? You and I have discussed ad nauseum some of the other moves that we, would make with position players. And, I don't know what they're waiting for. What are we waiting for here? We've got a handful of veterans that are going out there. We don't want to sacrifice MLB wins. What exactly are we doing with these wins? We're not going anywhere with them. So why are we sacrificing? What exactly is it that we're sacrificing, Pedro Grafal? I mean, you're going to give us the Rick Hahn lawyer speak as the manager, and he's starting to sound more and more like TLR to me every day. It's unbelievable with some of the crap that comes out of this guy's mouth. So I honestly, let's just do it. Let's get it rolling, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that up in a second. That was one of Grimtall's posts here in the Twitch chat here. I'll bring that up in a second. So speaking of the pitchers coming here and pitching against these guys and giving them some at bats, giving them some time to pitch against these guys, the young guys. And I saw your tweet, so now we get to argue. Okay.
Oh, I did see this tweet as well too. So we want to let's fight.
There's 3 guys right now: Lenyn Sosa, Oscar Colas, and Corey Lee. And I've been, ready to, as soon as the trade deadline hit, and you didn't trade Yasmani Grandal. Nobody wanted Elvis Andrus. Why would they? Right. Except for, maybe somebody that's looking for a utility guy that can play middle infield specifically and doesn't have to hit, but even though he's on a heater right now, whatever. But right. I was there ready to DFA both of those guys and get Carlos Perez, a bunch of at-bats. And, with Sebi being injured, go ahead, put Grandal on the bench. Let Carlos Perez get those at bats, and work behind the plate. And then once either Corey Lee was ready, or if you really, really, really wanted to bring Sebi back, you could bring Sebi back and put him as the backup until Corey Lee was ready. Same with Lenyn Sosa. Get rid of Elvis Andrus, put Lenyn Sosa in there. Where do you stand on these guys?
It's interesting. Well, let's talk about Colas first, okay? Because we didn't bring him up much there, but at the front you talked about him. I ran a query just to look at early career starts for White Sox players, guys starting their career, and I ran it based on Lenyn Sosa because of his treacherous start so far, the first 37, 38 games. But what came out in the query, and it was 71 people since 1978, so I chose the year I was born. Even though people on the internet think I'm 50, I'm not 50 yet. I'll be there at some point, but not 50 yet. And Oscar Colas was in the bottom 5 as far as OPS start of a career, to make you realize how poorly he's hit. Now, and on top of that, some of the mental errors on defense, which are just unconscionable. He has the skill set to be a good defender in right field. He has a strong arm. He moves well. He seems to get decent jumps on the ball. All the stuff that he makes mistakes for is just concentration stuff, ball right at him. He doesn't pick it up and the guy gets an extra base. He overthrows a cutoff person or whatever. So
just happened.
And yeah, it just happened in this game, right? And so he's inching up on 300 plate appearances where his OPS is in the 500s. That's not usable. That's not a major league player as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying you DFA him tomorrow, but I mean, how many more plate appearances do we think giving him will change this over? And so I lean to the same thing with Sosa. Now Sosa has less plate appearances, but is still above 130. And he had the lowest OPS out of anyone, like as a start. He was 71 out of 71, like a very, very bad start to a career. Now in the last few days, he's hit a couple home runs, which I like. He's got some pop. The problem is though, the other stuff still isn't really lining up. Like the batting average is still well below 200. I think he has 38 strikeouts to 2 walks in 140 plate appearances. You can't make it with a 1% walk rate in the major leagues. Like, so I have my mind on Sosa. Like, I get giving guys a chance because it's a throwaway last month or whatever. But also, like, once this month's over, I don't, unless you go on a real heater, I'm not that interested in handing the position to you next year. Like, this is kind of my thought process with some of these guys. So yeah, you can get, when this doesn't matter, you can get a month or two of plate appearances, but you really got to show something, and these two guys, in my personal opinion, haven't shown a thing. Ian, you bring up Carlos Perez. Now, Carlos Perez does look like he has a clue at the plate. Like, he looks like he knows how to hit, and like he has decent control of the strike zone, everything. I wonder how much of it was just like they don't know if he's a major league catcher, and that's why they flipped Corey Lee in here to give like a look like, okay, can Corey Lee be a major league backup catcher or something like that? Corey Lee doesn't look like he's a guy who's going to hit much, but he throws the hell out of the ball and looks athletic back there. So maybe. So that's kind of where I'm at with like this group right here. If you salvaged, 1 second division player out of this group, like when I ran the query on Sosa, I'm looking and I'm like, well, Yomer Sanchez had a pretty bad start to his career as well. Could Lenyn Sosa give us 6 B-WAR over the next 3 seasons? Maybe the defense is pretty good. Maybe he figures enough out where he has the power and like he's okay. He's like a decent second baseman. So I'm into it, but I think we need to like set a standard for these guys. Hey, you didn't cut it in this amount of time. Next guy's up, or we're going to get a free agent because you just didn't do it.
Yeah, I'm going to say a couple of things here, and then I'll turn it over to you, Danny. As far as Lenyn Sosa goes, this is one thing that's been a normal thing for him, where he goes to a new level, and he looks like he's never played baseball before when he gets up to the plate. And usually it takes about 150, 175 at-bats and consistent playing time, and then he just starts murdering the ball. And I think that's like that's been part of the issue for him this year is that, with him bouncing back and forth between levels, he's definitely a comfortability guy. And I don't feel that he's ever had a chance to get comfortable. And this was like an opportune time for that to happen because this team's been so piss poor since May. Yeah, I mean, really since opening day, but like you knew that the season was over in May. And like the fact that they shipped him back down and, you can talk, Pedro, oh, well, yeah, it looks like when he came back, he figured something out down there. And it's like, not really, man. It's just like, it's just consistent stuff. And then, as far as Carlos Perez goes, yeah, I think that was the question was with whether or not he's an actual major league catcher. Is that his bat to ball's good and he can hit the ball and he'll sometimes hit for power, which showed up last year, where he just started hitting home runs all over the place. But, yeah, that's what. Then the Colas thing, he's got all the tools. I think it's just you wait and see if he's going to figure it out. And if he doesn't, he doesn't, and you call it a wash and it is what it is, So what do you think, Danny?
I just to touch on that really quickly. I don't want to drag this out too long, but the Colas thing, even the Lenyn thing, I was kind of just, again on this throwaway of a second half of a season because it's become painfully obvious this team is not the team that we hoped it would be for the last few years, and I would like to see these guys just get the opportunity to play consistently. Obviously, Colas has been playing a lot more consistently than Lenyn, but I just want to see that if they were given that time, will they actually turn it around and perform? Because it's pretty obvious to me that the veterans are also lacking that focus. There seems to be a organizational issue when it comes to pitch selection. I mean, this is, we got guys striking out at ridiculous levels, ridiculous numbers and paces at pretty much all the levels except for the lowest of the levels. You go down to Winston-Salem, you go down to Kannapolis, and those guys seem to be performing at a much better clip when at the plate when it comes to pitch selection and their strikeout to walk ratio. Uh, I just want to see if there's going to be any kind of change in the turnover in the organization here over the coming months. But, then again, if we do that, are we getting into next season where we've got to wait the first 3 or 4 months to see what we've got there and if any changes have actually been made? And as White Sox fans, the waiting has become painful. It has been painful waiting for things to come to fruition because we're told something by spin doctors. It seems like on a daily basis, and Rick Hahn, when it comes out that he David Kaplan saying that he wanted to resign multiple times during his reign, and Jerry was going to invoke his contract, and he wasn't going to let him do it. Rick Hahn,
boy, he's got to get paid millions to sit at home. I feel
right,
bad for him.
I mean, right, exactly. And I'm thinking to myself, when I say spin doctors, this guy was the spin doctor of all spin doctors. I mean, he's lawyer. This dude he could sell anything. He could sell sand at the beach. So who knows what we're gonna get and what we're gonna be told. But God, the waiting is just. I'm growing more and more impatient. If it's not obvious right now, like I'm about to crawl out of my seat and out of my skin as we talk about it. So. Yeah, I want to give these guys the opportunity, but at the same time, I'm tired of waiting.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, we were sold the bill of goods, whatever.
When was the last time we had a second baseman on this team? Like when you start talking about Lenyn Sosa coming up, and he's finally starting to heat up, half the fan base is like, oh, hey, where we go? The second baseman we've been waiting for. Well, not necessarily, You look at the numbers, like B says, and they're not that great. It's had a little bit of a turnaround on a hot streak, but I mean, do we got to go back to like Tadahito Oguchi?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly who you have to go back to.
I mean, what do we have between him and there? What do you got? Ray Durham and
Alexi Ramirez played the 1 year at second.
Yeah, his rookie season. Yeah, his rookie season. He played one season. We have Brent Lillibridge. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I got one more thing. Last 7 games for Lenyn Sosa, 750 OPS, 250 batting average. Now, and I'm going to do the same thing for Oscar Colas, but, 4 of those games were against the A's, so is it real? I don't know. Oscar Colas, 350 with an 850 OPS. So let's hope that that's, a harbinger of things to come. But I don't know because, like I said, against the A's, and then you see them go out tonight against Grayson Rodriguez, who, is
he's good.
He was the top rated pitching prospect in the minor leagues last year. The guy was a stud. He started off slow with the Orioles, and after spending some time back in AAA, he came back and now he looks fantastic. So, granted, just like we say, well, it was against the A's. He looked fantastic, but it was against the White Sox. So,
right, exactly. Well, I Ian, the thing with Lenyn too is the bar's lower for second baseman, and like hitting 18 home runs, even with a poor hitting profile and good defense, is probably enough to be decent at second in the major leagues. So it seems like he has enough pop there. But my question is more this with these two guys: like, how many plate appearances do you give them? Like Colas is at in between 250 and 300. Lenyn's he's not up to 150. You were talking about Ian. He usually struggles for 150 plate appearances. I think he's like 140-ish or something. Like, how long of a leash do you give guys like in this situation to find out? Because this is something I just pondered. I ponder a lot about like giving a guy a shot, right? Guys who are picked in the first round, they get unending amount of shots. Guys who are picked in the 10th round, they get 12 plate appearances 1 week because some guy got injured, and if they didn't do anything that day, like then they're out. Like it's weird, but like what's like an ideal amount where you're like, okay, we think this guy is something or not, and we're kind of ready to turn the page.
Well, my main feeling here on this whole thing is that, this farm system has been maligned for a while, right? And so Lenyn Sosa was one of the brighter spots over the last couple of years, and the thing about that is, yeah, he's got that number, but it's about him, with him, it's always about, having a consistency, having a routine, and getting into a rhythm of doing things. And he hasn't been allowed to do that. Yes, he's hit that magic number, of like 150 at bats and whatever, but it hasn't been consistent at all. And I think that's kind of where, like, the thing that he's shown literally everywhere he's gone is that if he gets the consistent at bats, he works it out, So that's kind of my thought. I mean, I'd say like 150 consistent at bats would be nice, without having him sit, every other day,
Right. And they seem to be starting to play him more regularly now, and hopefully we'll get a full September where we get a look and we can really see.
Yeah, let's hope. So I want to stick with the theme of younger guys, but this guy's not that young. But in his career, he's still on the lower side of service time, and he is a known target of the guy that's sitting in between me and Danny Miller here. Beefloaf, you hate Andrew Vaughn. What does Andrew Vaughn?
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, what does Andrew Vaughn have to do to get out of your doghouse?
Okay, this is a good question, Ian, because I've been a skeptic, we'll say, of Andrew Vaughn, and really not I wouldn't call him a hater. I want him to be good. Like I really would. If he crushed at first base, I would absolutely love it. No one would love watching him hit a home runs more than me when I'm attending 70 games a year, on 35th Street here. But the issue is he's been given a lot of leash by the fans, a lot of they take him for granted that, he's going to get better. And he has kind of not gotten better over the course of 1,500 plus plate appearances. To get out of my doghouse, one of two things he has to do. Okay. And number one, I would love it if he put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle, because he can't move anyway. So who gives a shit? Get yourself stronger and bash the ball to the ballpark and be a 25 to 30 home run hitter kind of consistently, and be that run producer that when he was out of his mind at the beginning of the year, his batting average with runners in scoring position was insane. And everyone's like, he drives in runs though, so he's fine, Beef. And I looked the other day and he's tied for 55th in Major League Baseball in RBIs. They're like, well, that cooled down. That's not what it's there. So either he's got to crush the ball, which I don't think he's ever going to end up being that guy, or Ian, Danny, what he needs to do is hit 280 or 290. Yeah. I think he needs to. Someone told me this not too long ago. They're like, he's like Mark Grace at first base. We think of him as like a power hitter, but he needs to be a guy who hits for average. And I was thinking about, I was like,
needs to be.
If Andrew Vaughn hit 290 or 280, that would push everything else up, because he doesn't walk a whole ton. Right. And the reason he doesn't walk a whole ton, it has nothing to do with identifying pitches. He has a good eye. He understands what's what up there. They're just not afraid of him. They're not afraid that he's going to hit the ball in the ballpark, and a lot of times that's what draws the walks for these guys. So I think he's got to push his batting average up. So I would change course. Either you put on muscle and then, we're going to pull balls out of the ballpark. If you don't do that, if you stick with the body that you currently have, I would revert to looking to right center and punching balls to the alleys like he first did when he came up, where it was like, he looks like a doubles hitter. And I would just revert to that. But I don't think he's ever going to be the guy that was promised. And that is what it is. That's, that maybe just who he is at this point.
He's a ring up Belko.
He does. I just watched that on Netflix.
Fantastic!
That was great. I loved it.
Fantastic.
So Grimtall answered the question for you. He said, "Grow 5 inches."
That would help.
Yeah.
And hence my Belko comments. We all know Bear's size grew like 17 sizes, and his feet, were like boats. But we're kind of hoping if Andrew got his hands on some human growth hormone, maybe he'd kill a couple inches taller.
Well, his hat would
he'd
get
be able
bigger.
to snag some of those. Just hoping he'd be able to snag some of those errant TA throws and swing the bat, get it off your shoulder and
Yeah.
actually put the ball out of the infield.
So aggravating. Grimtal also says as fourth overall pick, he needs to mash, and I don't
Absolutely.
disagree. I mean, it's been disappointing. I'll just put it that way. I haven't been like a ardent Andrew Vaughn supporter, but I was all about giving him time. But like we're going on, 2 years now, and I'm not seeing like really any growth here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, he's arbitration eligible next year, guys. I mean, like, so he's going to start getting significant raises, and it's like, okay, the early part of your career here is done. Like, you really need to be much more productive. And if you look at him, like, if you look at first base rankings, like, he's a second division first baseman. Like, he probably on a good team, he probably hits 6th or 7th. Like I don't know. So I don't know if there's another gear there or what, but we have to hope there is because. We traded Jake Berger, so that's there was your other first baseman potentially.
Xavier Fernandez has entered the chat.
Yeah. So let's move along here. So something we had Herb Lawrence on last week, and
nice.
I was
another
like,
fantastic guest, by the way.
Yeah, he was great.
He's the best.
I'm sitting here texting with him back and forth afterwards the next day, and he responds to me and says, "Hey, this news coming out is crazy," and like I had seen like a blurb pop up on my phone, saying Rick Hahn, but I was driving, so I was like, oh well, obviously I'm not going to look at it, but he's this, like I read, my car chat thing reads the thing and says that's this crazy news, and I was like, oh, what the heck's going on here? So I pulled over and looked and saw that Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn had been relieved of their responsibilities. Now,
I see where Herb ranks on your list of priorities. By the way, I'm sure if he got a text from Danny Miller, he would not pull over.
Pshaw. So
they're old buddies. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they are. They are indeed.
So KW and Rick Hahn get relieved of their duties. Now, here's a question. That doesn't say they've been fired into the sun. Right? So are they gone, do you think?
Yeah, I would think they're gone. Yeah, I think relieved of your duties means you're no longer needed here, and we're gonna change the locks on your office. That's what it sounds like to me. Just a nice way of saying it, maybe.
Yeah, I think that they're being far too nice given the results.
Agreed.
I'm far more concerned with the reports of who is going to replace them, but I'm sure we'll get into that very shortly.
That's coming here. So obviously you've been a harsh critic of one Rick Hahn, and rightfully so. Like I felt like me and Danny, we tried to stay on the nice side of Rick Hahn.
I defended him quite hard for a while, actually.
Yeah, we were like some of the really late
Foolishly
adopters of the it's time to go. You were not one of those people.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So we bounced some messages back and forth on Twitter, and we celebrated. So the report that came out immediately afterwards is that Chris Getz is a favorite for the GM position, and that Dayton Moore was going to be hired as well. With later you find out that he is going, he's like a father figure to him, and he's actually going to be working under Chris Getz.
That's weird.
Does this make you almost as angry as Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams?
Yes, almost. Like, although it's possible that Chris Getz would have some different ideas than these guys did, and that Dayton Moore would come in with some different ideas. But ideally, when you do something you haven't done in your organization in 20 years. You cut guys who have been here, for the better part of the century. You would think you might want to go in some totally different direction. Not a guy who was sitting right there next to them, potentially part of this problem, right? And we've talked about this. The farm system hasn't really it failed during this competitive window because it didn't bring the reinforcements that were needed at the time. Now there's improvements starting to come through, and high-end prospects are starting to move that look great, like Noah Schultz and Colson Montgomery. But it's too little too late for that last window. And I'm not sure, you're willing to like credit that guy who didn't reinforce the roster at all with anything from the minors. And he's been here a while now. I mean, it's not like Getz just got here 2 or 3 years ago. I think he's on year 7 or something like that with the organization. So yeah, I mean, it was sickening to see right afterwards. And I almost wanted to just assume like this was just Bob Nightingale running with some shit and not really knowing what's going on. Like my fingers were crossed that they would do an actual real search. And look, even if it's someone that I'm not a fan of, but as long as they're from the outside, they come in here and it's a completely different regime, I'll be happy in the interim and give them a fair shake. Chris Getz will probably have about 15 minutes of me giving him a fair shake until he screws one thing up, and then he'll be on my shit list.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. The thing is when you fire, first of all, mid-season, which we have not ever seen as Sox fans, at least not in my lifetime, where there is a change before the season ends. So that's a first, and kudos to doing that, I guess. But I mean, you're talking about firing 2 guys who have pretty much been epic failures during their entire tenure with the White Sox, aside from, lightning in the bottle in 2005 with Kenny Williams. But, you fire these guys for ineptitude only to promote a guy who has pretty much failed on a miserable level during his reign in his job. We're just going to go ahead. We're going to take 2 inept guys and we're going to bring another inept guy and elevate him in this position. It seems like it's the White Sox way, but like you say, we all kind of hope that Bob is just, blowing smoke out there. He's trying to be that guy who, back in the day used to break a story every now and again. And maybe he's trying to prove that he can still do that. Because, it was only a couple days later where there was all of a sudden, whispers of other candidates being out there. White Sox Twitter erupted, or whatever it is, White Sox X now, WSX. I don't know if it was like Ian asked if, was that just smoke and mirrors to see how we would react? But, when there were other reports of other names being tossed around out there, guys from the Orioles organization and, other places, I thought, okay, well, maybe that was just Bob doing his thing. But then now we're getting more reports of, no, it's Chris Getz and it's Dayton Moore. And the thing about Dayton Moore,
what's kind of funny though is it doesn't seem like anyone has a report of X person interviewed for this job. It all seems like speculation, which is kind of funny, right? I listened to something with Tom Verducci. He was on The Score today, and was like, and I listened to like 5 minutes of this. I'm like, this guy has no idea who is interviewing for this job at all. No, he has no clue. And I'm like, and it doesn't seem like anyone has like a grip on, this person did meet with Jerry Reinsdorf and crew and interviewed for this job. It's kind of a weird situation. On the one hand, you think, okay, no one knows what they're talking about. On the other hand, if no one's interviewing, that's a bad sign. That might mean that Chris Getz is going to get the job.
Well, I heard that Chris Getz flourished as the director of the minor leagues. And I would like you to rate the amount of flourishment you think he has. Because I am not personally. If it was a 1 to 10 flourishment meter, I would probably say we're looking at like a 2.5. I feel like granted,
I would not even use the word flourish. So there's my answer.
Certainly not. But you see, I am the first person when anybody brings up, the minor league system's garbage, is that it's taken a turn in the right direction the last 2 years. And I think a lot of it has to do with, the hiring of Andy Barkett and them working on a organizational wide. I mean, whether guys follow it or not, but there is an arrow pointed in a certain direction the way they want guys to do things. And the guys that
By
have
the way,
done
we've
that,
reached the point of the show where I start ripping heaters back to back here because I'm starting to get the agita, getting the agita here, man. I mean, it's, we start talking, we're getting on those subjects where I'm just going to start chain smoking over here. So please continue. I'm sorry.
fair enough. I think that they have taken a positive developmental upturn recently. But here's the thing: is that because we are looking at better drafts with better decisions made now that we have Mike Shirley at the helm of things instead of Nick Hostetler, and I don't have an answer for that. I mean, that's one thing is that everybody always talks about, oh, well, the development sucks, the development sucks, the development sucks. Well, what about the, who's deciding?
The talent evaluation.
Yeah.
Who's making the selections here?
Exactly.
It's a great point, Ian, because you came on my podcast and we talked about Chris Getz, and you mentioned that, they've made some improvements to, kind of what they're doing down there. And so this is some of the values have, but you're right, the results aren't coming. I'd had Mike Rankin from Future Sox on before, and he echoed a lot of the things that you're saying. It's like they brought in some good people, they changed some things about the way they're doing it, but none of it's getting up here. And to dovetail with that, I don't normally care that much about the draft coverage of any year because I don't know anybody and I don't watch college baseball. I listened to Sox Machine. Josh Nelson had Jim Callis on there. And Jim Callis went off on a tangent and he said, sometimes it's not the development. The teams generally know how to develop a player. Sometimes it's just talent evaluation. You just pick guys that aren't good. And I thought, what balls in this guy to say this, which I loved. And then I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense. Some teams are going to be better at identifying talent. And it's less about this one key trick to get you to unlock something and more about the guys we're working with are just better than those other guys that those guys are working with.
Yeah. I mean, if you can identify somebody that has the higher ceiling that just hasn't been there and, the process is there, it just hasn't, the results haven't hit yet, and you give them a little bit of time to build that up, and maybe that's why there's better results now. And, over the last 2 seasons, I kind of think that it might have been the talent evaluation and who was making the decision on who was getting drafted, because things have taken quite a turn, I feel, here in the last couple of years. I mean, just the college guys that they're getting are just better.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. And I kind of want to know what Beef thinks of Mr. Mike Shirley, because I know what you think, and I got to tell you, I don't think there's anybody out there that watches more minor league baseball than Ian, including the White Sox scouting department. So
100%.
It feels that way anyway.
Yeah.
But I just kind of want to get your thoughts, Beef, on do you have anything that you want to get out there about Mike Shirley, or where he's going?
I'll tell you, I do like Mike Shirley. So Mike Shirley's first draft, if I remember correctly, was 2020. It was the weird, the COVID year. And what I've noticed about him up top is he's not afraid to take substantial risks if he thinks the upside's there. So he took Garrett Crochet that first year. Now, that's not really working out that great. And then he doubled down and went Jared Kelly, and that's not working out that great either. But he went for ceiling. He tried to draft Dwight Gooden, not some back-end starter. And that's what you do. Who cares if they crap out? A lot of them are going to crap out anyway. Draft for the ceiling. He drafts Colson Montgomery, who's a cold weather player, older. Everyone's scared to draft the guy because he's older in high school. Good. Those are the kind of risks you take right there when you're in the back of the first round. You won't always bink him like he binked that one, but that's a good risk. He takes Noah Schultz, who's you can't develop a 6'9" pitcher. Too bad. Well, let's try it. Let's take some risks. So I like it from a risk standpoint. I don't know a lot about the further back in the drafts, but he seems even this year, he took that huge kid that's a local guy, that George, whatever his name is. It's yeah, that's a good risk. Okay, you paid him $1 million or whatever. Who cares? If it doesn't work, great. But, he might be Dave Winfield. I don't know. Take a risk. Take some shots. And he seems to be willing to, actually take some risks here, not just, take some safe guy so that he could show he got 5 guys to the majors that were useless. Like, let's draft a star or two.
Yeah, I mean that seemed to be like a an ongoing theme, from like 2016 to 2019 with those drafts. Like you got Zach Collins. I mean, you just got like all these guys. You got these guys that were like, I mean, granted, Jake Berger. We'll get to him in a second, but 2017, then he has a double Achilles, so we didn't really see that. You got a Romy Gonzalez in there, but there's like, obviously there's a lot of rounds, and you've seen just a small amount of these guys. Zach Remillard coming through. It's been small stuff. Declan Cronin, Lane Ramsey, they're starting to make their matriculate their way up to 35th
Right.
and Shields. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, it's like it was all safe guys. And they didn't shoot for the stars. And the one guy I think that they did was that Bryce Bush.
Oh yeah, yep. They gave him a big bonus and later in the draft. Yeah.
And he
that's a good shot to take.
It was, and unfortunately, he got a concussion or 5, and apparently things like he's still having issues now with blurred vision and stuff. And like, I mean, I feel terrible for the guy. I mean, not to make a joke about all the concussions, but I mean, it seems like something happened and it just never got right. And that was like the one guy that they, like the bonus baby that they went for late in the draft, and it just didn't end up working out, and is what it is. But all right, so KW with one last parting jab as he walks out the door. He trades. He calls up or he gets a call from his old friend Kim Eng down in Florida, and she wants Jake Berger. And
I gotta dial up another heater here, man. Jesus.
They trade Jake Berger for Jake Eater, and I, as a known prospect hugger, every time I see this guy pitch, he had Tommy John, and then immediately after, like during his rehab, he fractured his foot. So the guy really didn't get to throw a whole lot. He had the Tommy John in August of 2021, and then in his rehab last year, he ended up fracturing his foot. So he came back late this year. So now he's at 50 innings pitched, and he looks kind of gassed. And he's had a couple of blow up innings. But the stuff's really, really nasty. And he, pre-Tommy John, he skipped all levels, went straight to Double-A from college, had a 1.92 ERA with a 0.95 left-handed hitters batting average against, and like 1.95 right-handers against right-handers. The guy was, I think he had like a 0.92 whip or something. He was, ridiculous. So the pedigree is there, the skill set is there. It's just going to take some time for him to build back from it. But you're not a fan of letting Berger go. Let me hear it.
Yeah, I wrote a blog. Well, I mean, I was driving to Lake House. We were going on vacation, and I'm in the car with my daughter. We drove a couple cars up. My wife drove our dog up, whatever. And like as we're getting closer, my phone's starting to blow up with people like messaging me or like Twitter, because I have all the everyone, Ken Rosenthal and all these guys, so that it pops up, especially about the trade deadline. And when we get there, I'm kind of like, wait, Jake Berger got traded? Why? It wasn't one of the expiring contracts. I was a little surprised. And so when I actually, so emotionally, I didn't like it because I'm enjoying watching Jake Berger play. It's one of the few reasons to watch this current White Sox team. But I'm open-minded to the fact that it's a team with a lot of similar pieces, and unlocking one or two of these pieces makes sense to me. When you have guys who are like Berger and Eloy and Vaughn, all these right-handed hitters that, they kind of like minimal position versatility, that sort of thing. So I thought I'll let my mind go for a couple days. When I sat down to write about it, I looked at it strictly from the Berger side of like what would have to happen for the White Sox to win the trade versus for them to lose the trade dramatically. And I just feel like there's still more upside in Jake Berger's bat. And I think we undervalue how important slugging is in the kind of current major leagues. Like he was slugging 850 when he left or something like, I mean, sorry, he was OPSing 850 when he left. And it was like, top 20 in the league or something like that, and his slug was top 15 in the league. And it's like, that's really valuable. Let's say he never becomes better on defense and he never becomes better, more patient or whatever. That's still a pretty like decent player, usable player, especially when they have all this control. And so I was looking at it from that perspective. Now, and I agree with you. Jake Eater, who they got back, was a top 100 prospect and it has pedigree here, but pitchers are always riskier. And, and so you kind of dumped a guy that you at least knew you had something going here. And the control doesn't matter, right? He would be controllable till 2029. So it's not like, I could see it if it was Eloy or someone. And it's like, well, they only have a couple more years of control here, and then you're turning out a guy here. But I just feel like there's ways the White Sox could lose this spectacularly, and there are ways to win it too. But I'm kind of wait and see. Emotionally sad, analytically scared. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you look, like generally when I look at a guy, I look at OPS and OPS plus, WRC plus, all that stuff. I tend to, and slugging obviously is part of that, but one thing that I look at a lot is ISO. And, he had a 313 ISO with the White Sox when they traded him. I mean, he's only got a 138 ISO with the Marlins right now. So he was putting up a lot more power with the White Sox. And I'll be honest. I like Jake a lot. I think he's a great dude, and he does like some awesome things for mental health, and that he can play baseball. I'm fairly confident that he's a good baseball player, but I do think that his numbers are going to come back to earth a little bit from what he's doing on a contact rate down in Florida. That said, I said to somebody the other day, they're like, this trade looks worse and worse by the day about this after Jake Eater went out and threw like 4 innings and gave up 5 runs. And I was like, the guy's 50 innings out from TJ and a fracture in his foot. And, but if you want to be mad at KW, I'm not going to talk you out of that because the guy's an idiot,
Well,
Well, you're right. You're going to see a little more time, to really know who won or lost. But I was heartbroken. I'm sorry, Dana. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, absolutely. Because I am actually. Oh, what?
What's up?
Yeah.
Did you turn on your?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, is that your phone?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was like, what is
Spooked
going on there?
himself.
Yeah. Anywho, no, I was just saying it's completely fine because I'm actually in agreement with you, and Ian will tell you. I mean, if it's not already obvious, I can get pretty emotional when it comes to the White Sox, and I can, in order to stop myself from making the emotional tweet or post on Facebook or going, all ham on somebody.
Yeah.
I tend to do it now in our private chat with the us and the other members of White Sox Daily, and I immediately was in that chat like, what the just happened? Are you freaking kidding me? I was not happy. I really didn't know who Jake Eater was. Ian kind of talked me off the ledge a little bit, but at the same time, everybody keeps saying, and Ian's not the only one saying it, when they say Jake Berger is probably not going to be able to sustain the tear that he went on, when he joined the Marlins organization. But at the same
Right.
time, there's part of me that says, okay, maybe he's not going to sustain totally, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe there's a coaching staff there that has kind of unlocked his bat because Jake was drafted for his bat,
Yep.
and he was supposed to be one of the better hitters in his draft class. I don't know, maybe there's a coaching staff there that has unlocked something that Jake has been missing. It's not like anybody else on this White Sox team has developed a bat in the last, I don't know, however many years. We can go back to long before Todd Steverson or any of those. There's not, well, I mean, let's be honest. Who have you seen develop a bat with the White Sox? Luis Robert, of course, second half has looked much better. We finally seen a full season of him being mostly healthy. Eloy, again, he has his ups and downs, but there's nobody really on this team doing anything except for when Jake Berger was out here hitting dingers. And like Beef pointed out, you know, uh slug is probably pretty big, especially in a ballpark like, guaranteed rate field. I still call it
We
Comiskey.
need people to
US
lift home runs out of
Comiskey.
this park, Danny. That's what we need. Like,
I mean, it's in the top 5 hitter-friendly ballparks as far as home
yeah.
runs are concerned, and this White Sox team is in the bottom at hitting home runs at home.
At their own park.
We sure give up plenty against the opposing team. So what on earth are we doing here? So yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I really hope that Jake Eater pans out, but it was tough. It was really, really tough to see Jake Berger go somewhere else and do the things that he's been doing since. I mean, honestly, right off the bat, we do kind of look like losers in the situation, but time will tell when Jake Eater makes his way through the system. So I don't
It's
know, but I'm
interesting
with
you,
you, man.
you bring that up, Danny, about the improvements because I took a quick look at it recently. I'll look occasionally, but much like when anyone leaves the White Sox, I don't pay a lot of attention to them anymore. I'm like, well, I got enough to worry about with our group of knuckleheads. But one thing I did notice is that the K rate has gone down, and that's like kind of a positive thing for him. Like when I was analyzing like what could happen, one of the things I did was like I just took his walk rate from whatever it was 7%. And I said, what if he became the kind of guy who walks 10% of the time and keeps this power? Yeah, and he becomes a monster. Like like there's a level in there where if he finds it, like he's a guy that is a permanent DH and like you don't worry about it. Like he's just gonna be a monster power hitter. That potential's like still in there somewhere. Will he ever hit it? I don't know. I mean, maybe not. Most guys don't end up improving enough to like get to all of whatever they got. But like it was the part that scared me. I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, this would be the kind of guy we would love to put, hitting third or fourth in this lineup, and you just traded them away, with all this team control. And that's where I was with you, Danny. Is like, what the hell? What is this?
What happened? I mean, and you say in a season that was completely lost basically from day one, we had something to watch and pay attention to be happy about. And you took that away. You took the wind out of our sails. And it almost felt like a big FU after this fan base has been, chanting sell at games and, FU Jerry and all the things that you see that maybe you're not super proud of, when you're there in person like you are, like you say, 70 games a year, but
roughly, yep.
you know, it just felt like the organization was like, oh, F you to us and fire Jerry and or sell the team Jerry and fire Han and Kenny. Oh well, here's one last F you to the fans. It just felt that way to me.
Oh yeah, and the thing is that by the story that I heard is that Rick Hahn was walking by and heard the phone conversation saying, "Well, we've got a deal." And that's how he found out about Jake Berger being traded. So, by all accounts is that's like a kind of just a toxic relationship. And, you mentioned earlier that Rick Hahn tried to quit numerous times apparently. And Jerry's like, yeah, no, I'm not letting you quit. So, what a train wreck. So we go from one embarrassing thing. Let's talk about something that's even more embarrassing and puts an even bigger black eye on the organization. Friday night, the A's are in town. It's I Love the 90s night. Tone Loc and Rob Bass and Vanilla Ice are playing a show after the game's over. The White Sox go out and lose 12-4. And get smoked. And it comes out after the game that 2 women got shot at the game. Nobody knew anything about it. The game wasn't stopped. They only evacuated like 3 rows. And nobody knows how the gun got into the stadium. Whether the gun was in the stadium, whether it got shot from outside.
There's some interesting theories on that, by the way. But.
Yeah, I'm bringing that up in a second. So, after on like Sunday, people started thinking, oh, well, it came in from outside of the park. And so the CPD comes out today and say that is not the case. It did not come from outside the park. It was definitely in the park. And as somebody that was at the game, did you have any idea what was going on?
None whatsoever. I'll be perfectly honest with you. We knew nothing until it was in the bottom of the ninth inning. We started getting some DM messages that there were SWAT teams heading to Sox Park. We thought there was something going on outside. We thought it was an outside thing because we didn't hear anything. There was nothing during the in the ballpark that were like made us aware that something was going on. And that's kind of the weirdest thing about this. Like, you know, the game comes to an end. You could tell like the grounds crew is ready to like bring out tarps and like get the stage set up. And probably 2 minutes after the game ends, they put the thing on the scoreboard that they're having technical difficulties. And so the concert's canceled. And because of the incoming DMs and people started reaching out to cop friends that they knew, like, what's going on here, we knew something had happened. It was allegedly someone had gotten shot. First thing we heard was someone got shot outside gate 4. Then we heard, someone got shot in a parking lot. Then we heard some rumors that it was in the stadium. And we're all looking around like, in the stadium thing's got to be BS. We've been here the whole time. No one heard a gunshot. Nobody saw people run. Like, we're on the other side of the ballpark, but believe you me, guys, when there's a fight in left field, everyone gets their eyes on it. We catch that right away, and the commotion attracts your attention. It shocked me, and I don't know the logistics of this, that I did not hear a gunshot, but apparently there was one. I didn't hear it in the stadium, and I was wondering, like, I grew up in Bridgeport before it was nice. When I was a little kid and I lived west of,
the 90s, or the 80s and 90s, early 90s, I should say.
I mean, 80s, early 90s. I was born in 1978, and I lived on the west side of Bridgeport. I lived very close to Morgan Street, which was littered with gangs at the time. Okay, and so as a kid, we'd hear gunshots all the time, and you could hear them from blocks away. Now the difference is 25,000 people weren't also there making noise. So I have no idea if I would hear a gunshot or not hear one, but my instinct was, that's crazy. It couldn't have happened, right? And we finally hear the story about like the magic bullet that allegedly came from outside of the stadium. So that next morning, my daughter and I drove over to 42nd and Wells, and we're in the car, and we're over there. We're like, I don't know, man. This seems like this would be a miracle if this this is actually the truth, you know? So I don't personally know what to believe, but what's most hilarious, we were talking about it Sunday after the Sunday soak, and my buddy Aloha Mr. Hand is like, you need to just come out with a press conference and do like crisis management here and just say, look, you know, we're still investigating this, but here's the things we're going to do to make sure that everyone's safe going forward, and nip it in the bud. But they haven't done any of that. They've just let it lay out there, and there's 50 million different rumors about what's going on, and no one seems to really know what happened at this point. Like, you can't get anything clear. You just have CPD saying, we told the Sox to do this. And, the Sox not really even addressing it at all, just kind of leaving it lay there. It's a very strange situation, although for this organization, probably par for the course.
There is a rumor going around, and I'll bring that up in a second. But so Grimtall and I, we grew up together. And he's roughly about the same age as me. His dad, in the 90s, his dad drove him down to Bridgeport, drove me around and said, is this what you want? Go to college. So, yeah. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Ian's a suburbanite.
I am.
He doesn't know anything about, real gangs.
Oh, I do. I do. Just not from where I grew up.
All right. Oh, well, okay. All right. Not in your own backyard per se.
Yeah.
I am a South Sider, tried and true myself. I'm a Midway kid who
Nice.
I lived right in a little pocket called Chrysler Village where we didn't necessarily have a lot of gangs in our neighborhood, but we were kind of sandwiched between a bunch, and it was a contested area, so we kind of were our own gang trying to keep them out. But yeah, man, I'm gonna guess you didn't have to deal with any of that over there.
We had like
western suburbs.
Yeah, we had a little bit of stuff like when I was like a senior in high school or whatever.
I had to throw that dig out there.
It's all good, man. I'll wear it. I'll wear it. Yeah, and Grimtall brings up in the comment. He says, "My dad grew up on low, so both of his parents are city people, you know. So you know they knew exactly, you know, his dad knew what he was saying. Anywho, have you seen this obnoxious story that was put up on the interwebs today? And I don't know if there is any bit of truth to it whatsoever. But there is something along the lines of some lady, in fat folds, is putting a gun and like, I'm just saying, I'm saying, I don't have any idea if it's true. It's certainly obnoxious, but
Goodness. No, I didn't read it. I know what story you're talking about. I did not read it. Some of my friends were like, "Oh, did you see this?" I'm like, I'm not reading that. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Like, I'll wait till there's an official story that comes out and then tell me. I'm good about all this stuff. Here's what I'm happy about. Seemingly, you know, other than the people who sustained very minor injuries, from what I could tell, no one was injured, and so we got lucky this time. Nothing bad really happened. They need to fix the shit for next time. That's it.
Yeah, so I've got one last thing to talk about before we get to just some fun stuff.
But this hasn't been fun up until now? What's wrong with you?
No, I'm saying, you know, like actual fun topics instead of stuff that makes you feel like you're getting kicked in the junk.
I do have one more thing to say about this whole shooting incident. And, you know, if in fact, now that the CPD is saying that the gunfire came from inside the park, whether it was shoved under somebody's belly roll or whatever, you know, I don't really care either here nor there. But, you know, we've talked a lot about security at, you know, the field, the stadium there, and how, you know, piss poor entering the ballpark can be at times, especially giveaway days. But, you know, anytime there's a large crowd, it's slow. And it, you know, going back years to when I was working with a third-party vendor at the game, it's the same security system that's been there for God knows however long.
Since it
Do you
opened.
think that do you think that there's a chance now, maybe possibly, that we get an updated security system at good old US Comiscular Rate Field over there?
I sure hope so. You know, because I've gone to Wrigley recently, and they have the updated one. You don't empty your pockets, nothing, and people get into the ballpark fast. And like, you know, this situation aside, that would be great for business, you'd think. Now you're going to get people in there so much faster. They can get concessions. They get to their seat. It's a much more enjoyable experience.
Imagine.
Like, this is no-brainer stuff. Even if you just had one gate where you had all that technology, it's like, that's the fast gate. Everyone know to go there. Fine. If there's a line there, then you go to the other ones. I don't understand it. Like, it seems like the most obvious thing. Get people in the ballpark quicker. Give them the most amount of ways to pay for stuff. Like, all this is like the easy stuff, I would think.
Yeah, that's the thing that driven me nuts, and we've talked about it umpteen times on this stream, so I'm not going to get too in depth. But I work at a casino, and when the pandemic hit, we had an X-ray when people walked through the doors that would read their temperature, so we knew if anybody that was coming in had a fever. We also have ones that can that are just like the ones at Wrigley, where they can tell if there's a gun. It's not that difficult, you know. It's just you have to invest a little bit of money, and I don't know who's to blame, whether it's the city of Chicago because it's technically their park, or whether it's the White Sox. But whoever it is, they need to sort it out. And clearly, if this is not what is going to spur that kind of change, I don't know what more needs to happen for them to make that change. So Grimtall says Jerry staged a shooting to move the team to Naperville. In the comments. So I'm going to ask you, is the Nashville rumor, is it 100% a leverage play?
I think so. I mean, it feels like every team is using Nashville as a leverage play. Like we were joking about it on our podcast. I'm like, 10 teams will be in Nashville in the next decade. That'll be the whole division will be down in Nashville because everyone's claiming they're going to move there. Like, I assume so. Like, I don't think we were looking at market sizes, and like, Nashville's in the mid-20s. Chicago is a top 3 market as far as population goes. Like you look at census data or whatever. It's like if they were moving the White Sox to California or to New York, New Jersey area, yeah, I could see it because they got a lot of population there. You might absorb the team. Here, when you got 10 million-ish people in the metro area, like I don't think so. I don't think they're letting them move. I would assume MLB would put the kibosh to that.
Hey, John Rudels, how you doing, buddy?
Rules.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same thinking there. So, if they were to move, do you think that they're staying put in that pretty small, like I don't know, 10, 15 block radius, whatever? Do you think that they would move to the west side over near the Bulls, over near the United Center? Do you think that they would go to the Loop, or do you think that they would? Why anybody would think that this is a good idea? Put them in Soldier Field.
That's what's funny is the Soldier Field idea could be a good idea, but it takes so much work to fix everything to get people in and out of there. Like the area, the space and everything, you're right by the lake. You know, you could really set up a whole like baseball village over there and it would be scenic and nice, but it's impossible to get in and out. Like that, like it's a great idea conceptually, but it'll never happen, right? Like my thought is they probably end up kind of right over here or near over here, and I think a lot of this might just be a leverage play. I think the ballpark seems like it's still in pretty good shape. Maybe they would need a cookie, like, okay, they're allowed to develop maybe north of the park or something in some of the lots back there that they don't use, maybe closer to 39th Street or whatever, or the lots that they don't use as much of. The West Loop is easier to get to than Soldier Field, but it's still not the best. I don't love, like, I'll go to Bulls games or Blackhawks games if I have tickets, but I don't love trying to get in and out of there. I just feel like that's also a tough one for me. But yeah, I mean, my guess is they stay here, and that's what I'm hoping for, because obviously I have full seasons and I want to continue to go to a lot of games. But I'm shocked that there's not a legit idea for going to the South Burbs. Like that would make some sense to me, right? You know, that's where a lot of Sox fans are concentrated. So it's kind of interesting that rumor hasn't popped up yet.
Yeah, Danny, he volunteered his backyard, but I haven't heard anything back about that yet. Yeah, and you know, there's also the Arlington Heights thing. You know, I mean, it's off of a couple of highways and whatever. You know, personally, I would have like if they had moved to Addison way back when, I would have been absolutely thrilled, and I think that it would have helped at least the fan base out this way, but it would have alienated the, you know, in-city folks such as yourself. And like I get it. I mean, no matter what they do, it's just going to be somebody's not going to be happy about, you know, where the location is. I mean, all I know is that everybody is requesting that there's a retractable bulletproof roof. That's all I heard.
I have one question on this subject, and one and only one is you know, I saw somebody with some kind of artist rendering of a stadium back across the street, and do you guys think it? Yeah, well, I saw one basically back on the old where the old stadium was, and I just
like Lot B area right there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, right across the street from, you know, Gate 5 entrance area over there. Do you guys think it would be blasphemous to build another park on the site of the original Comiskey Park?
That's a great question, Danny. You know what? I Sox fans are sentimental about that park too. I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but that's a really good question. There'd probably be a group of fans that would be like, you know, fuck this, or the other fans might be like, okay, fine, build a replica of that park, build that park again, instead of what we have across the street, and maybe they'd be thrilled with it. You know, I think it could kind of go one of two ways. If you tried to build some modern new thing there, people probably hate it. But if there was a nod to it and they had the roof, you could have the roof shots again and everything, maybe people would love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. And like the ability to be right on top of the game like you used to be able to at the old park, that you just, I mean, you physically cannot do that. Even if you're in the front row now, you're still not anywhere as close to the field as if you would have been in like row 15 or whatever, you know, at the old stadium. Right. So I mean, yeah, there's that. But yeah, there is the thing, do you want to build on that, on that same spot? And,
Yeah,
because of those railroad tracks, they're kind of, pinned up against it. So
I've asked this question to a few people, and you know what? Beef has actually come up with the best answer I've heard. Nobody has suggested building a replica of the original Comiskey Park, and you know what? I think I could get on board with that. Uh, I don't know how long you have, or if you follow us often, Mr. Delicious, but when we originally started doing this thing, Ian and I, we had, instead of this beautiful animated pinwheel background that you see in front of you now, we had a photo of what looked like, well, it actually was the golden box seats with the
nice.
field in the background. And, I think I could get behind a replica, as long as you don't get that obstructed view that was the with the big knock on that ballpark back in the
Yeah,
day. So
fix that part, but kind of leave all the other creature comforts. It was
absolutely.
Ian brings up a great point. It was vantage points were good everywhere. You felt like you were really close to the action.
Hey, there it is.
yeah, there's the you can see it. Nobody else can. Oh, here, I'll do that.
Oh.
So you're missing Beefloaf, but that's the old backer.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So so let's go ahead and I don't want to keep you too long because it's a school night and whatever. But I do want to go ahead and bring this thing up. Let's hope that this works. No, is that the 2-person? That's the 2-person. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, and it worked. Oh, that's amazing. Look at that. Oh, man. I can't believe it actually worked first try. That is amazing. So I've got 4 guys here, and I want you to tell me about their flourishment and how excited you are on to give these guys a chance to bring them up. Obviously, one of them is going to be he's a little bit farther away, but I just want to go ahead and bring this up, and you tell me what you're thinking here. Come on, there we go. All right, so there's that's Homer the Dragon, his bobblehead. I'm going to go ahead and play this here. I think. There we go.
Entered play today, batting .409 with the Knights. Has played in every game here in the series. Here he sends one down the right field line, and that is going to be a home run for Xavier Fernandez. Goes opposite field. Thought it was just going to tuck inside, maybe land inside the foul line, but it just hits the corner of the foul pole and the yellow line.
So Xavier Fernandez right now is hitting something like 411 with like an 1100 OPS in Charlotte, and he's been going berserk in July in Birmingham. For the month of July, I think he hit 407 after like dealing with some like little injuries and whatever, but he just went crazy. So what you're looking at here with him is essentially a mentally stable, slightly better defensive Yermin Mercedes. What would you think about bringing him to the South Side? Oh, no. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I'm having an issue here. I'm having an issue because I am a knucklehead. Give me 1 second. Yeah, because I forgot to put the Discord audio the new way I have it done in here. So, but go ahead and if you would, how do you feel about Xavier Fernandez now that I have enabled your audio? People can actually hear what you're saying.
Great. I feel like he's It says he's 5'8", 245 pounds, so he's a thick guy in the middle like I am, and I would love the cheap power in 2024. Ian, I'm for taking a look at something like this, especially you mentioned his numbers. Goodness gracious, is he blasting the ball in AAA, and it looks like he was good in AA as well. Hitting for a ton of power, controls the strike zone, walks a bunch. Yeah, let's take a look. I'd love to take a look.
Why not, right?
Let me answer this, Ian, real quick.
Yeah.
You think we all know he's a catcher. Do you think he can? You think old Ron Washington can teach him how to play first base?
It's real hard.
It's not that hard. Tell him, Wash.
It's real hard. Yeah, he is playing first base, and
he has been.
But here we run into the Beefloaf issue that he has with Andrew Vaughn, where he's 5'8". And a 5'8" first baseman, even though I have seen him make some pretty nice leaping grabs over there, he's still a shorter guy, but he does have a slightly better glove than Yermin Mercedes, and is a better catcher as well. Okay, so moving along to the next guy.
2 out, here's Rodriguez. And he drills one deep left. Knowles going back at the wall. He climbs it. He runs out of room, and it's 5-1.
I recognize that guy. He was in Chicago for a little bit.
Yeah, for like the shortest the shortest of times possible, and he did get to pinch run, and he did play at second base for an inning, so that was awesome.
He did.
So Jose Rodriguez. Yeah, what are you thinking? You think this year? You think next year? Never? What do you think?
That's where the tug of war comes into place, Ian, because you have Lenyn Sosa and you have Popeye. Like, who do you want to give time to there? What surprised me with Popeye, and I don't mean to be heightist or sizist, but when he came into the game to pinch run, he only came up to like Daryl Boston's belt buckle, and I was like, man, this guy's really small. I didn't think he was that small. Like, I've seen videos of him bashing home runs in the minors, so I'm like, I know he's got pop, and I'm like, he's a very small guy, but he, different than Vaughn, he has the quick twitch. The guys that run and got the quick twitch, they can get to the power. Sometimes it's the slower guys that are small. It's interesting. It depends on what your leash is with Sosa and how far behind some of the rest of the group is as far as getting here. I don't know where Brian Ramos ends up playing. Like, there's guys who are there who you're like, their bats look like they play, and they may slide in there. So he may end up getting squeezed out by just virtue of time. But I wouldn't mind getting a look of Popeye. I know a lot of people that I like and respect really like him, so I wouldn't mind getting a look.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, he has really good bat to ball skills, like just on terrible pitches. He's still got great bat to ball skills, and he's not as short as Jose Altuve, but the quick twitch power, it reminds me a lot of his, even though I believe he's like 2 inches taller, but regardless, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. All right, so this one, everybody knows this guy.
Gomez. Dashwood.
By the way, we are not advocating for guys who swing at balls out of the zone.
At the wall, she's out of here. A 2-run homer
necessarily.
To right center by Colson Montgomery, and we've got ourselves a ball game. It's 5-3.
Plenty of that.
This guy's a blue chip prospect here.
Yeah. So for those of you not watching the stream, listening in podcast form, that's Colson Montgomery just went 410 at 100 miles an hour to right center field. Number 1 prospect for the White Sox, and obviously, you're hoping that you get to see him in the near future. At least he gives enough of a reason to push the White Sox to make that call.
Yeah, this is the kind of prospect I love, Ian, because it doesn't matter what position he ends up at. Bat is good, and it's going to be good at whatever position he ends up having to play. So there's not the pressure of, well, if he has to move to this spot, then it really devalues him. This is a guy who has plate control. He walks. He's got power. He can hit for average. He kind of can do everything, and he might still be a shortstop also. Like, this is this is your rare blue blood that's coming out. It reminds me. It's kind of funny. Him coming up, even though he's a better prospect than this guy, reminds me of when Tim Anderson was coming up, because Tim Anderson was on fire in the minors. It's like you're bringing this guy up, and you're bringing him up into almost nothing around him. In fact, the 16 team was better than what Colson's going to come up into. It's kind of interesting how barren it is for this guy coming up. It makes you wish they had just done a little better along the way, because he could have been a real nice finishing piece for like the second half of the contention window.
Continual pipeline of talent.
That's
right. I also noticed I did not include your
number 10.
What's that?
You just said continual pipeline of talent.
Yes.
Heater number 10 on the way.
There you go, Danny.
I did not include a home run by your second cousin, Brian Ramos.
It's okay.
But I think that if he hadn't started so late this year, it's entirely possible that you would have seen him this year, and it's still a minute possibility, but I kind of doubt it because like the last week and a half or so he hasn't exactly crushed the ball the last week and a half, and granted, he had a bad like a not great series this series, but overall, he still does look really good. Now I'm going to move along here to Beefloaf's guy. And for those of you guys that don't know, Beefloaf is a Tim Elko supporter. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up this Tim Elko hit right here.
2-2. Now one drilled center. Back to Teodosio. Track. Wall. That's gone. Tim Elko.
Easy power.
Yeah.
Right
Easy Oppo power.
Yeah.
Home run of the inning. And for Elko,
right center. Just easily gone.
Yep. Yeah, no big deal,
No, that's right.
There goes the lead.
There you go.
He's also not 5'8".
Yeah, exactly.
He is not.
He looks like a ball player. Yeah.
Yeah, 413 feet, 105 miles an hour, Oppo.
That's
Which
power,
I mean,
baby.
like that's no joke right there. I mean, that's fantastic. Oh, there goes the stinger. All right, we're gonna wait a second here for this to clear. Oh, and there we have it. All right.
Heyo.
So, Beefloaf, thank you so much for having, giving us your time tonight and being willing to come on tonight. I had a great time. Danny?
Fantastic. Absolutely. It has been a pleasure, sir.
Yeah,
guys, I had an awesome time. Thanks so much for inviting me. And Ian, I know we've been wanting to get together and discuss stuff. And I appreciate you letting me talk about how much I don't care for Andrew Vaughn. And I really enjoyed the discussion about Lenyn Sosa, because I think it's a discussion that needs to be had, because you get a lot of short stuff on Twitter. But I think we dug in there nice. And so you have me feeling a little more confident about giving Sosa the next 150, 200 plate appearances just to see what's going to happen there. So, boys, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Grimtall says it'll be nice in 2 or 3 years to read about other fan bases complain their GMs passed on Colson for 21 rounds. Yeah. Or 21 picks. 21 picks. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll have that Mike Trout conversation.
Love it.
So, Beef, where can people find you?
They can find me and kind of everything that me and the 108 boys do at FromThe108.com. You can find us at FromThe108 on Twitter. You can find me specifically at Mr. Delicious13 on Twitter. Most of our products, we have the 108 podcast is Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. We do a live stream, so please jump in the comments there. I do a side podcast. It's called The Au Jus. Ian, you've been on there. Some of it's interviews. Some of it is White Sox stuff. That's 6 p.m. Central Time on Monday nights. And then home weekends on Sundays, 11:30 a.m., we do something called the Sunday Soak, where we get in my hot tub and we answer questions from people. It's the thing we've been doing the longest content-wise. We did it before we had a podcast, and we absolutely love it.
Yeah, if you guys want like a proper rim to make that hot tub a big beer glass, just let me know. and I'll figure something out and make a mask for you so it'll fit right over the top of that thing. So thanks so much for coming on. My name's Ian Eskridge, at iEskridge on Twitter. My co-host, the Danny Miller WSD over on the end over there. WhiteSoxDaily.substack.com. You can find us on Facebook.
Candy.
Yes, the eye candy. Sorry. No, this way. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook. Just go ahead and search White Sox Daily. At Daily White Sox on Twitter. Thanks for coming into the comments, and thanks for watching. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much for listening. You guys have a great night, and we will see you guys next week. Maybe. Actually, it's possible. Maybe even not, because Labor Day. I don't know. We'll talk about it, and we'll figure it out. You guys have a great night, and we'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye. Boom.